Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into a topic that's been making headlines and sparking quite a heated debate in the UK. Assisted dying.
It's fascinating how this issue is coming to a head right now.
Yeah.
We have a private member's bill set to be introduced in Parliament
Oh, wow.
on October 16th, 2024,
Uh-huh.
which aims to legalize assisted dying for terminally ill adults with 6 months or less to live.
That's right.
Yeah.
And adding fuel to the fire is a petition spearheaded by Dame Esther Ranson,
Right.
the renowned broadcaster who's been so courageously sharing her own experience with stage 5E lung cancer.
It's incredible.
This petition, with over 200,000 signatures,
Wow.
has really pushed this issue into the spotlight.
It's a testament to the power of personal stories.
Yeah.
Especially when someone as respected as Dame Esther Ranson is willing to be so open about their own struggles.
Yeah.
And it certainly seems to have caught the attention of lawmakers.
It has, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
The UK government itself isn't sponsoring this bill. They're allowing a free vote, which makes predicting the outcome even more challenging.
Oh, definitely.
To help you navigate this complex landscape,
Yeah.
we're going to dissect the key arguments for and against assisted dying,
Okay.
giving you the facts, figures, and real-world examples to form your own informed opinion.
Exactly.
Wait.
We're going to give you the full picture,
The full picture.
not just the headlines.
Love that.
So let's start with the current legal situation.
Okay.
Right now,
Yeah,
assisted dying is illegal in England and Wales.
it is.
This forces many individuals seeking this option to travel to countries like Switzerland,
Right.
where it's legal.
And that's not just a matter of booking a flight, is it?
No, it's not.
It creates a whole set of logistical and emotional hurdles.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We're talking about people facing a terminal illness,
Yeah.
having to grapple with travel arrangements,
Oh, God.
and potentially making life or death decisions under immense pressure,
I can't even imagine.
often prematurely just to navigate these legal restrictions.
And, one of the sources we dug into actually highlighted a study
Oh, really?
that found that 1/3 of Britons who traveled to Switzerland for an assisted death
Wow.
did so earlier than they would have preferred,
Gosh.
simply because of the challenges of traveling abroad for this procedure.
That's a pretty stark statistic.
It is.
And it really underscores the human impact of these legal barriers.
Yeah.
Now, let's delve into the heart of the matter.
Okay.
The arguments in favor of legalizing assisted dying.
Okay, so a front and center in this debate is the concept of autonomy and personal choice.
Right.
This argument emphasizes that individuals facing a terminal illness
Yeah.
with the prospect of immense suffering
Mm-hmm.
should have the right to choose how and when they die.
It's about respecting their autonomy.
Yes,
And their right to make decisions about their own bodies and lives,
absolutely.
especially when facing the end of life. Proponents argue that this is simply an extension of the right to refuse life-prolonging treatment,
Okay.
which is already recognized in medical ethics.
Right, so if you can choose to refuse treatment, that might extend your life.
Exactly.
Shouldn't you also have the right to choose a medically assisted death?
It's an interesting parallel.
It is.
It is, and it's one that proponents use to bolster their argument for consistency in medical ethics.
Yeah,
And of course, the other major argument is the reduction of suffering.
of course.
Supporters highlight that assisted dying can offer relief to terminally ill patients who might experience unbearable pain,
Yeah.
even with the best palliative care.
It really forces us to consider what constitutes a good death
Right.
and whether prolonging life at all costs is always the most compassionate approach.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's another side to this coin.
Absolutely. And those who oppose assisted dying raise some important concerns.
Okay.
One of the most prominent arguments is about the sanctity of life.
Okay, let's break that down.
Sure.
Essentially, this argument upholds the belief that life is inherently valuable
Yes,
and should not be prematurely ended, regardless of the circumstances.
that's right.
Opponents fear that legalizing assisted dying could undermine this principle
Uh-huh.
and devalue those who are elderly or disabled.
They worry it could send a message that some lives are less worthy of protection
Right.
and that choosing death is a solution to suffering,
Yeah.
rather than focusing on care and support.
Right.
It's a deep-seated ethical concern that we need to acknowledge.
Absolutely. And this leads into another major concern,
Yeah.
the risk of coercion.
Oh, yes.
Critics worry about vulnerable individuals,
Mm-hmm.
particularly those with disabilities or mental health issues,
Right.
feeling pressured to choose assisted dying,
Yeah.
even if it's not truly what they want.
Imagine the potential for abuse.
Oh, gosh, I know.
If someone feels like a burden on their families or the healthcare system
Right.
and opts for assisted dying out of a sense of obligation
Yeah.
rather than a genuine desire, the question becomes,
Right.
how do you guarantee truly informed and voluntary consent in such a complex and emotionally charged situation?
I can't even imagine.
It's a valid concern.
It is.
And it highlights the importance of robust safeguards.
Yes.
If such a law were to be passed.
Definitely. And that leads us to another argument against assisted dying.
Okay.
The focus on palliative care.
Right.
Opponents argue that instead of legalizing assisted dying,
Yeah.
our efforts should be directed toward ensuring everyone has access to
Yes.
high-quality palliative care.
They believe that effective palliative care can address suffering without resorting to ending a person's life.
Right.
It's about providing holistic care, not just managing physical pain,
Right.
but also encompassing emotional, social, and even spiritual support for the patient and their family.
And this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If we can truly ensure everyone has access to this kind of comprehensive care,
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially alleviate the desire for assisted dying in many cases.
Precisely. Now, shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
Another concern opponents raise is the slippery slope argument.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The fear that legalizing assisted dying, even with strict safeguards,
Yeah.
could eventually lead to an expansion of eligibility criteria.
Exactly what starts as a tightly controlled option for the terminally ill
Okay.
might gradually extend to those with chronic illnesses.
Right.
Or even those experiencing what's called existential suffering.
So people might choose assisted dying not because they're facing imminent death,
Yeah.
but because of social or economic pressures, or even a general feeling of hopelessness.
That's the worry.
Right.
It raises questions about where the line is drawn and how to prevent the potential devaluation of life
Right.
if assisted dying becomes more broadly available.
Yeah, and this concern was actually highlighted by a group of disability rights advocates in one of the articles we looked at.
Oh, wow.
They argue that legalizing assisted dying could disproportionately impact those with disabilities who already face societal pressures to view their lives as less valuable.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And something we need to consider carefully as this debate unfolds.
Now, aside from these ethical and societal concerns,
Yeah,
there are also specific concerns within the medical community.
that's right. Some doctors worry that introducing assisted dying could fundamentally alter the nature of their profession
Okay.
and challenge the long-held principle of do no harm.
Essentially, they fear it could shift the doctor's role
Mm-hmm.
from healing and preserving life
Yeah,
to one where ending life becomes an acceptable option.
exactly. It raises complex questions about medical ethics.
Of course.
How do you reconcile the traditional role of a doctor
I know.
with the potential for providing assistance in ending a patient's life?
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And I can see why there's so much debate and disagreement within the medical community itself.
Absolutely. And speaking of the medical community,
Yes.
it's worth noting the stance of the British Medical Association,
Right.
the BMA.
The BMA currently maintains a neutral position on assisted dying,
Right.
reflecting the diverse views among its members.
That neutrality allows them to represent a wide range of perspectives
Okay.
without taking a firm stance on such a morally and ethically complex issue.
I see.
However, it also means they aren't actively advocating for either side of the debate,
Right.
which leaves some people calling for them to take a more definitive stand.
Especially with public sentiment appearing to shift towards greater support for assisted dying.
You're right. YouGov conducted a poll in September 2024
Okay.
and found that 73% of Britons
Wow.
support legalizing assisted dying for terminally ill adults,
Right.
a significant increase from 64% just 5 years ago.
Wow.
These figures suggest a growing acceptance of assisted dying as a compassionate option,
Yeah.
which could put pressure on organizations like the BMA to reevaluate their stance.
It's a dynamic situation that will be interesting to watch as the debate continues to unfold.
Definitely. Now let's shift our focus to a particularly powerful aspect of this debate. The personal stories of those facing terminal illnesses.
Of course.
Their voices provide a deeply human dimension to this conversation.
Yeah.
One story that really resonated with me was that of a gentleman named John, who was featured in one of our sources.
Oh, yes. John, he's the one with motor neuron disease, right?
That's right. John described his experience of watching his body slowly deteriorate while his mind remained sharp. He spoke eloquently about his desire for the option of an assisted death to die with dignity on his own terms, rather than enduring a prolonged and agonizing decline.
His story is a powerful reminder that this debate isn't just theoretical.
Yeah.
It's about real people facing incredibly difficult choices and wanting to have control over their final days.
And his story also highlights the limitations of palliative care in certain situations.
Okay.
While palliative care can do wonders to manage pain and symptoms, it can't always address the existential suffering that comes with facing a terminal illness.
John's story really underscores the need for a compassionate and nuanced approach to end-of-life care.
Yes.
Recognizing that one size doesn't fit all.
I couldn't agree more. Now we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But there's another key aspect of this debate we need to delve into.
Okay.
The experiences of other countries that have already legalized assisted dying.
Right.
Learning from their successes and failures could provide valuable insights for the UK.
Absolutely.
As it navigates this complex issue.
You're right. Let's look at the example of Oregon.
Okay.
The first U.S. state to legalize assisted dying back in 1997.
Wow.
They have a system known as the Death with Dignity Act, which has been operating for over 2 decades now.
Okay.
One of the sources included a study that analyzed data from Oregon's program.
Really?
Which found that the vast majority of those who chose assisted dying did so because of concerns about losing autonomy and dignity, rather than solely because of physical pain.
That's a really interesting finding.
It is.
It suggests that for many people, the desire for control over their final days, the ability to make their own choices about how they die is paramount.
Exactly. And Oregon's experience also highlights the importance of robust safeguards.
Yeah.
Their system includes strict eligibility criteria, mandatory waiting periods, and multiple physician assessments to ensure that only those who are truly eligible and making an informed and voluntary decision can access assisted dying.
Their model has proven to be relatively successful in preventing abuse and ensuring that the system is used appropriately.
Wow.
However, it's worth noting that even with these safeguards, there are still ongoing debates and concerns about the potential for unintended consequences, which is something the UK would need to consider carefully.
Absolutely. Learning from other countries' experiences, both the positive and the negative, is essential.
It can help policymakers make more informed decisions.
Yes.
And hopefully create a system that is both compassionate and safe.
And that's what we're aiming to equip you with.
Yeah.
The knowledge to navigate this complex and sensitive issue.
We want to empower you to form your own opinions.
Yes.
Based on facts, evidence, and real-world examples.
Exactly. Now, I know we've thrown a lot of information your way.
We have.
But I want to circle back to the story of Dame Esther Ranson and her petition.
Yes. Her courage in speaking out about her own experiences has really brought this issue to the forefront of public consciousness.
Absolutely. Her story is a perfect example of how personal narratives can shape policy discussions and spark important conversations.
It reminds us that this isn't just an abstract debate.
Right.
It's about real people's lives, their hopes, their fears, and their right to make choices about their own deaths.
And her story also illustrates the evolving nature of societal attitudes towards death and dying. There's a growing openness to discussing these topics.
Right.
A willingness to challenge traditional taboos.
This shift in attitudes is reflected in the increasing support for assisted dying. Yeah.
Not just in the UK, but globally.
It is global.
People are increasingly demanding control over their own end-of-life experiences.
Yes.
And lawmakers are being forced to respond.
It's clear that this debate is far from over.
It's not.
But by engaging with the complexities, understanding the different perspectives, and learning from the experiences of others, we can hopefully move toward a more compassionate and ethical approach to end-of-life care.
I couldn't agree more so as we wrap up this deep dive into assisted dying.
Okay.
We want to leave you with some food for thought.
Okay, bring it on.
We've explored the arguments, the evidence, the ethical considerations, and the deeply personal stories that shape this debate.
We really have.
But ultimately, the question of whether or not to legalize assisted dying in the UK is a deeply personal one.
It is.
With no easy answers.
And as we've seen, there are strong arguments on both sides.
Absolutely.
Passionate voices advocating for different approaches. What we've aimed to do in this deep dive is equip you with the information, the insights, and the diverse perspectives to grapple with this challenging topic.
Absolutely. And one thing that struck me while researching this topic was the sheer range of perspectives even among those who support assisted dying in principle.
Okay.
Some advocate for a very narrow scope, limited strictly to those with terminal illnesses.
Right.
And experiencing unbearable suffering.
Right. While others believe it should be available to those with chronic and debilitating conditions that significantly impact their quality of life, even if they aren't facing imminent death.
Right.
It raises complex questions about where the line is drawn.
It does.
And how to define suffering in a way that is both compassionate and ethically sound.
It's tough.
It is.
And of course, there are those who fundamentally oppose assisted dying in any form.
Yes.
Believing it undermines the sanctity of life and could lead to a slippery slope where the value of human life is eroded.
Their concerns are not to be dismissed lightly.
Yeah.
We need to engage with these arguments thoughtfully.
We do.
And consider the potential risks and unintended consequences of any legislation.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Considering the ethical complexities, the diverse perspectives, and the strong arguments on both sides, what do you believe is the best way forward for the UK on this sensitive issue?
We've given you the tools to analyze the facts, weigh the arguments, and understand the human stories behind the headlines.
We have.
Now it's up to you to form your own informed opinion.
Absolutely.
And engage in this crucial conversation that will shape the future of end-of-life care in Britain.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great having you.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time.
Yes.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.